The galaxy was vast, filled with countless stars, worlds, and civilizations. Yet among them all, one species stood above the rest, feared and respected in equal measure. They were called the Zerath Dominion, a race of towering warriors with iron-like skin, sharp vision, and minds trained for strategy and war. For thousands of years, their name had been written into the histories of other species, always as the conqueror, never as the defeated. To the Zerath, strength was the greatest law of existence. Every child grew up learning that power was truth and weakness was a curse. From a young age, they trained in combat, discipline, and obedience. By the time a Zerath reached maturity, they were already soldiers of the Empire, loyal to its endless expansion. The Dominion stretched across the spiral arms of the galaxy. Worlds once free now bore the banners of the Zerath. Armies marched under their flag, fleets patrolled their space, and countless alien races served them, either as vassals or as conquered subjects. No one challenged them. No one dared. The Zerath believed themselves invincible. Their philosophers taught that they were chosen by fate to rule the stars. Their generals believed no species could rise against them. And their emperors ruled with certainty that the Dominion would never fall. Yet despite their pride, the Zerath remained curious. Their scouts and explorers were always searching the uncharted corners of the galaxy, not because they feared anyone new, but because they wanted to prove that no other race could ever compare. Each time they found a new world, they tested its people, and each time they returned victorious. One day, however, they came across a small blue planet on the edge of an unremarkable system. At first glance, it seemed ordinary: clouds, oceans, forests, mountains, deserts. Primitive life, nothing of note. Their records showed no mention of this world before. Its name in the local tongue was Earth. The Zerath considered it insignificant, but the Empire had rules. No world went unnoticed. Scouts were sent to observe, and what they found stirred something unusual in the High Council. Earth was home to humans. At first, the Council laughed at the reports. Humans were fragile compared to the mighty Zerath. They were shorter, weaker in muscle, and lacked natural armor. Their weapons were primitive compared to galactic standards. Their world was divided into nations, often fighting each other. But the longer the scouts studied, the stranger the picture became. Humans had a history filled with wars, disasters, and struggles, yet they always endured. They survived plagues, famines, and endless conflicts, often rising stronger each time. Unlike most species, they thrived in many environments: deserts, tundras, jungles, high mountains, and deep seas. Even the harshest places on Earth were not empty. Humans always found a way to live there. The reports unsettled some of the Zerath generals. Humans, despite their weaknesses, showed unusual patterns. They adapted quickly, learned from mistakes, and never seemed to surrender to despair. Where other species collapsed under hardship, humans built new paths. The High Council gathered to discuss this discovery. The Emperor, a massive figure with golden armor and eyes like burning suns, listened to the scouts. His voice echoed through the Grand Chamber. "Are these humans a threat to the Dominion?" he asked. "No, my Emperor," replied the lead scout. "They lack the technology to leave their world. They are divided, their armies are primitive, their weapons rely on chemicals and metals. By strength, they are nothing compared to us." "Then why bring them before me?" the Emperor demanded. The scout hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Because they are different. They are weak, yes, but they do not act weak. Their history shows they never stop moving forward. They fight wars not only against others, but against nature itself. And somehow they always survive." "It is unusual," the council murmured. Many dismissed the idea. To them, humans were just another primitive race. Yet a few generals, older and wiser, exchanged thoughtful looks. One general, Lord Kyle, stood and raised his voice. "Emperor, forgive me, but I sense this species is not to be ignored. We must study them more closely. Their spirit is unlike others we have conquered. Perhaps they are not strong in body, but they may be strong in ways we do not yet understand." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. The Zerath did not often admit that strength could exist beyond muscle and weaponry. Still, the reports could not be ignored. "Very well," the Emperor said at last. "Send a fleet. Not to conquer, not yet. Watch them, test them. Let us see if these humans are worth our notice." And so, the decision was made. Far away on Earth, humanity continued its daily life, unaware that the strongest empire in the galaxy had turned its gaze upon them. Cities bustled, people went to work, children played, scientists researched, and leaders argued over politics. Satellites orbited above, capturing images of the stars, but none of them realized that among those stars, ships far larger and more advanced than anything they had ever built were already on their way. The Zerath fleet cut through space like silent predators. Their ships were black as obsidian, lined with silver markings that glowed faintly. Each vessel carried soldiers trained since birth, weapons capable of leveling continents, and technology that humans could not even imagine. As they approached the solar system, the fleet's commander, a stern and battle-hardened warrior named General Varen, stood before the viewing screen. His expression was calm, but inside he wondered what made this world special enough to draw the Emperor's attention. "Prepare the scanners," Varen ordered. "We will see for ourselves what these humans are." The fleet entered the system, passing Jupiter's storms, Saturn's rings, and the cold silence of Neptune. At last the blue planet appeared before them, shining like a jewel against the black void. For a moment even the Zerath soldiers stared in awe. Earth was beautiful, vibrant, alive. Oceans reflected sunlight, clouds swirled like silver veils, and green continents spread across its surface. General Varen felt a strange chill. He had seen many worlds before, but something about this one felt different. "Begin observation," he commanded. Drones slipped into orbit, silent and unseen. They watched the humans below, cities glowing with electric lights, aircraft flying across skies, ships sailing oceans. They recorded conversations, wars, laughter, inventions, and discoveries. The data flowed back to the fleet, and the more they saw, the more unsettled the Zerath became. Humans were indeed weak compared to the Zerath, yet they displayed endless energy. They argued, fought, created, and dreamed. Unlike many species that submitted quickly to power, humans seemed to resist even themselves, always challenging, always pushing forward. One soldier muttered to his comrade, "They burn like fire." Small, yes, but fire spreads. General Varen heard the words and kept them in his mind. Fire was dangerous even if it began small. The first chapter of a new story had begun. The strongest species in the galaxy had found humanity, and though the humans did not yet know it, their world was about to change forever. The first days of Zerath observation passed quietly. From orbit, their drones continued to study Earth. They recorded voices, signals, and even television broadcasts. The humans did not know they were being watched, yet their world was filled with noise and movement. Unlike many planets the Zerath had conquered, Earth was alive with activity every hour. General Varen sat in the command chamber of the flagship Iron Fang, his golden eyes fixed on the streams of information. Beside him, his officers read reports of wars, governments, and technology. "They fight each other constantly," one officer remarked, almost amused. "Their nations argue, their armies clash, their people disagree even on small matters." Another officer added, "And yet they keep building. Even in conflict, they invent machines, send probes into space, and dream of reaching other worlds." "It is unusual." Varen remained silent. He could see the truth. Most species broke apart after centuries of war. But humans had endured thousands of years of conflict, and still they stood. To him, that was not weakness, it was persistence. Still, he knew the Emperor demanded proof. The humans had to be tested. "Prepare the signal," Varen ordered. "It is time they know we are here." The world reacts far below, in the control room of a satellite monitoring station. Two human technicians stared in disbelief at their screens. Strange signals appeared out of nowhere, far beyond human technology. At first they thought it was an error, but then a massive shadow passed across the feed from an orbital telescope. "Is that a ship?" one whispered. It was not long before the news spread. Satellites across nations picked up the same readings. Giant objects larger than any human spacecraft had entered Earth's orbit. Governments panicked. Leaders held secret meetings. Military forces moved to alert status. Across the world, citizens turned on their televisions and phones to see the breaking news. Unknown objects detected above Earth. Fear filled the air. Some prayed, some rioted, and some celebrated, believing humanity was about to witness the greatest moment in history. In a secure chamber of the United Nations, ambassadors and generals argued loudly. Some wanted to attack, others wanted to surrender, and a few demanded communication. Finally, the Secretary General of the UN raised his voice. "We do not yet know their intentions, but if they have crossed the stars, then they hold technology far beyond ours. We cannot fight blindly. We must speak with them. And so, humanity prepared to answer. The first message in orbit, General Varen transmitted a signal. It was simple, spoken in the common Zereth tongue but encoded with translation matrices. The message reached every major broadcast channel on Earth at once. The voice was deep, powerful, and commanding. People of Earth, we are the Zerath Dominion. We are the strongest species of the galaxy, rulers of countless worlds. Do not fear. We come not to destroy but to judge. Your kind has been observed. Now we wish to speak. The world froze. For the first time in history, all of humanity heard a message from beyond the stars. At the UN chamber, translators worked quickly. After minutes of chaos, they finally crafted a reply. A single man, chosen for his calm voice, spoke into the microphone connected to Earth's strongest transmitters. This is Earth. We hear you. We wish to understand you. If you come in peace, we welcome communication. But we will not surrender our world. The message was short, but it shocked the Zerath. Most species responded with fear, begging for mercy or offering tribute. But the humans stood their ground. They admitted weakness but refused surrender. General Varen felt a strange respect. He turned to his officers. Did you hear them? They do not tremble. The next step was inevitable. The Zerath proposed a meeting. A neutral location was chosen, an open field far from major cities where no armies could interfere. On the day of contact, the sky lit up as a Zerath shuttle descended. Its hull gleamed black, its engines roared like thunder, and the ground shook as it landed. From the ship emerged towering figures, Zerath warriors in silver armor, carrying no weapons but radiating strength. At their head walked General Varen. Waiting for them were human leaders guarded by soldiers with rifles. Though everyone knew the rifles were useless against such beings, the two groups faced each other in silence. Varen studied the humans. They were small, fragile, and nervous, yet their eyes did not look away. They stood tall even before giants. Finally, the Secretary General stepped forward. His voice carried through the translators. I am here to speak for Earth. Who are you? Varen's deep voice answered. I am General Varen of the Zerath Dominion. We are the strongest species in this galaxy. We came to see if your kind is worthy of notice. The words hung in the air like a challenge. The Secretary General did not bow. Instead, he said calmly, Strength alone does not decide worth. What is it you wish from us? The Zerath guard shifted uncomfortably. No one had ever spoken to them in such a manner. Varen narrowed his eyes. We wish to test you, to see if your kind is more than fragile bodies and loud voices. If you are nothing, you will be forgotten. If you are something, then perhaps the galaxy will remember you. The humans exchanged glances. They were afraid, but something stronger than fear moved among them. Curiosity. A bold reply that night. The human delegation returned to their base camp, where scientists, generals, and advisors argued through the dark hours. Some demanded caution. Others wanted to prove humanity's spirit. One scientist, a woman named Dr. Elena Carter, stood and spoke firmly. If we bow now, they will never see us as equals. But if we show them our minds, our courage, and our will, then they may understand. We must accept their test. The next morning, the Secretary General delivered the answer. We accept your challenge. Test us and you will see what it means to be human. The words shocked even the Zerath. For once, a species had not begged, nor resisted blindly, but had looked the strongest empire in the eye and said, Test us. General Varen's lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile. Very well. We shall see. Shadows of unease back aboard the flagship. Not all officers agreed with Varen's interest in humans. They are defiant, one growled. This will lead to trouble. Crush them now before they spread their defiance to others. Another warned. If word spreads that such a weak species dared to challenge us, the Dominion's reputation may suffer. But Varen silenced them. Strength is not tested by crushing the weak. Strength is tested by facing the unknown. These humans are different, and I will learn why. His golden eyes stared once more at the blue planet below. To him, Earth was no longer just another world. It was a question, and he was determined to find the answer. The world watches on Earth. The news spread like wildfire. Every screen, every radio, every newspaper carried the same headline, Humanity tested by aliens. For the first time in history, humanity was united not by war, not by politics, but by the presence of another species. Fear and hope mixed together. Some prayed for victory, Some feared defeat, but all knew that the future of Earth now rested on how humans faced the trials ahead. Children asked questions. Scientists wrote theories. Soldiers prepared not for battle, but for something unknown. In quiet homes across the planet, people whispered the same thought. What does it mean to be human? General Veyron looked upon Earth one last time before returning to his command chamber. Prepare the trials, he ordered. The strongest species in the galaxy had given humanity its first challenge. And though the outcome was uncertain, one truth was already clear. The humans would not go quietly. The morning sun rose over the plains where humanity had first met the Zerath. The grass swayed in the wind, birds flew in the sky, and the horizon looked calm. Yet beneath the calmness, both humans and Zerath prepared for something far greater. The trials had been announced. Humanity would face tests designed by the Zerath Dominion, tests to measure strength, skill, and spirit. To the Zerath, these trials were sacred, for they had always proven their superiority over others. To humans, they were a challenge unlike any in history. Across Earth, people watched broadcast with anxious eyes. No warplanes flew, no missiles were launched. Instead, the world was united by curiosity and pride. Humanity would step forward not with weapons, but with courage. The arrival of the arena General Veyron ordered the construction of a massive arena, built by Zerath machines in a single night. Towers of metal rose, platforms unfolded, and vast grounds were prepared for the trials. To humans, the sight of such advanced technology was both terrifying and fascinating. Rows of seats circled the arena, filled with Zerath soldiers and officers. High above, drones recorded every movement. On Earth, televisions and screens displayed the images to billions. For the first time, humanity would stand before the galaxy's strongest and show what they were made of. General Veyron stood at the center platform, his voice echoing through translators. People of Earth, he declared, today your kind will face the trials of the Dominion. You will be tested in body, in mind, and in endurance. If you endure, your name will not be forgotten. If you fail, your world will remain as it is, insignificant. His words carried no cruelty, only calm certainty. The human representatives stepped forward. Among them were soldiers, athletes, scientists, and explorers, chosen from across nations. They wore no advanced armor, only simple suits designed for mobility. Their faces showed nerves but also determination. The trials began, the trial of strength. The first test was physical combat. The Zerath brought out one of their own warriors, a giant clad in light armor. His muscles bulged, his skin glimmered like stone, and his movements were sharp as blades. Against him stood a human soldier, Captain David Miller. He was strong by human standards, but to the Zerath he looked fragile. The match began. The Zerath warrior charged like a storm. His strikes shook the ground, and his speed stunned the human spectators. David dodged, rolled, and barely avoided the crushing blows. The crowd of Zerath laughed, convinced the fight would end quickly. But David did not fall. Each time he was knocked down, he rose again. Each time he staggered, he found his balance. He was no match in raw strength, but he endured longer than the Zerath expected. Minutes stretched on. Sweat covered David's face, his breath grew heavy, yet he refused to surrender. Finally, the Zerath warrior landed a heavy strike that sent him sprawling across the arena. The fight was over. The Zerath expected shame. But instead, the human crowd cheered. Billions watching on Earth cheered too. David had not won, but he had shown something powerful, the refusal to quit. General Veyron narrowed his eyes. They value endurance even in defeat, he thought. Interesting, the trial of endurance, the second test took place in the harshest desert of Earth. The Zerath had chosen a vast wasteland where the sun burned hot and the air shimmered with heat. Teams of Zerath warriors and human volunteers were dropped into the desert with minimal supplies. The challenge was simple: survive for 5 days and reach the extraction point. The Zerath warriors marched with confidence. Their bodies were strong, resistant to heat, and trained for survival. They carried heavy packs of food and water. The humans moved differently. They shared their resources, built shelters from the sand, and used clever tricks to conserve energy. They wrapped cloth to protect their skin, dug shallow pits for cooler rest, and rationed water with strict discipline. By the second day, cracks appeared in the Zerath strategy. Their heavy bodies lost water quickly. Their arrogance kept them from working together. Some collapsed in the heat. Meanwhile, the humans, though weaker in body, endured. They supported one another, carried the tired, and rotated tasks. Their teamwork turned weakness into strength. When the fifth day arrived, the Zerath team staggered across the finish line exhausted. The humans arrived shortly after, tired but still steady. General Veyron watched the recordings with a thoughtful expression. For the first time in many years, he had seen his warriors humbled, not by strength but by cooperation. The trial of mind. The third trial was a contest of intellect. In a chamber filled with puzzles, machines, and simulations, the humans and Zerath faced challenges of strategy and problem-solving. The first task was to assemble a broken machine. The Zerath warriors, confident in their superior knowledge, began forcefully rearranging pieces. The humans, however, worked calmly, testing each connection, sharing ideas, and correcting mistakes. Hours passed. The Zerath completed their machine first, but it collapsed when activated. The humans finished later, yet their machine ran smoothly. The next task was a battlefield simulation. Both sides commanded virtual armies in a strategic game. The Zerath charged head-on with overwhelming force, as they always had in real war. The humans, however, used deception. They set traps, created diversions, and struck when least expected. In the final moments, the human strategy defeated the Zerath forces on the simulation board. The watching Zerath audience grew silent. Never before had they seen their kind outmaneuvered in the trial of mind. Veyron's golden eyes studied the humans. Adaptability, creativity. These are their weapons. The trial of spirit Imai. Final test was not announced in advance. Instead, the Zerath suddenly revealed it. A challenge of fear. Both humans and Zerath were placed in a simulation chamber where their deepest fears would be projected. The Zerath warriors faced visions of weakness, defeat, dishonor, and broken pride. Some roared in anger, some tried to fight illusions, but most grew restless and uneasy. The humans faced different visions: storms, wild animals, fire, war, loneliness. They trembled, yes, but they did not break. One by one, they reminded themselves that these were not real. They leaned on memories of loved ones, on faith, on hope. When the simulation ended, the humans stood with weary smiles. The Zerath, though stronger in body, looked shaken. Veyron rose from his seat. He had seen enough. The aftermath. The trials ended with no clear victory, yet the meaning was undeniable. The Zerath were stronger in body, but the humans had proven themselves in ways that raw power could not measure. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. They had not crushed the Zerath, but they had stood tall, and that alone filled them with pride. Among the Zerath audience, whispers spread. For centuries, they had believed themselves unchallenged. But now a fragile species from a small blue planet had shown resilience, creativity, and spirit unlike any they had seen. General Veyron addressed both sides. His deep voice carried across the arena. "Humans of Earth," he said, "you are not the strongest in muscle. You are not the swiftest nor the most armored. But today, you have proven that strength is not only in the body. You have endurance, adaptability, and a spirit that refuses to break. For this, you have earned respect." His words echoed across the galaxy. For the first time, the Zerath had recognized another species not as prey, not as slaves, but as challengers. The humans returned home, not with victory trophies, but with something greater, proof that they belonged among the stars. Shadows on the horizon yet. Not all Zerath were pleased. In the council chambers of the fleet, some officers spoke with anger. "These trials have made us look weak," one shouted. "The humans are dangerous. If we allow them to grow, they will threaten the Dominion." Another added, "They must be crushed before they spread their defiance." General Veyron listened but said nothing. His thoughts were heavy. He saw danger, yes, but also possibility. He looked once more toward Earth, shining blue beneath the stars. A new chapter had begun. And though the trials had ended, the true test of humanity, and the Zerath, was still to come. The calm after the trials was short-lived. On Earth, humans celebrated their endurance, courage, and intelligence. Across the Zerath Dominion, however, unease spread like wildfire. Some officers whispered that humans were not just curious, they were dangerous. The trials had exposed flaws in the Empire's arrogance. For the first time, a fragile species had outsmarted and outlasted their warriors. In the council chambers aboard the flagship Iron Fang, debates raged. "They are a threat," one general barked, towering over the others. "We allowed them to survive, and now their pride will spread. If left unchecked, they may inspire other worlds to resist us." Another officer argued, "They are only a small species. Our strength is unmatched. Surely they cannot challenge us directly." General Veyron, who had observed humans closely, stayed quiet. His golden eyes reflected concern. He had seen their potential and their unpredictability. They may be weak in body, but they possess qualities our empire has not faced before. The Emperor's voice thundered through the chamber. "Enough, I will decide. If this species cannot be subdued peacefully, they will face the full might of the Dominion. Prepare for war." The first strike within days, the skies above Earth filled with Zerath warships. Massive vessels blocked sunlight, their shadows casting fear across cities and mountains. Humanity watched in disbelief. Though terrified, they did not falter. The UN convened emergency meetings. Military leaders coordinated worldwide. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, repurposing technology, preparing defenses, and analyzing the enemy's movements. When the first attack began, humans realized the true scale of the challenge. Zerath ships fired energy beams that could level cities in moments. Drones and war machines landed to secure key locations. Entire regions faced destruction, yet humanity fought back not with raw strength but with ingenuity. Fighter jets used clever maneuvers to avoid energy beams, while engineers created makeshift defenses from available materials. Civilians joined in, building barricades, transporting supplies, and warning communities. The human response captain David Miller, the soldier who had faced the Zerath in the trial of strength, now led a coalition of military units. "We may be weaker," he told his team, "but they underestimate us. Use your minds. Be unpredictable. The galaxy's strongest may not expect our creativity." Teams moved in coordinated strikes. Small human fleets targeted the weakest points of Zerath ships, exploiting gaps in shields. Ground units used guerrilla tactics, hiding, moving quickly, and striking when least expected. The Zerath were taken aback. No species had ever resisted them with such strategy. Every move the humans made seemed to adapt to the previous attack. They learned faster than the Zerath anticipated. On Earth, people cheered as reports came in. Humanity was not winning outright, but they were surviving, and more importantly, they were learning. Each encounter revealed new tactics, new devices, and new ways to fight back. Battles across the globe cities burned, but humans never surrendered. In deserts, forests, and mountain ranges, battles raged. Humans used the terrain cleverly, traps in narrow valleys, ambushes from treetops, and underground tunnels to move supplies. One battle in a desert canyon became legendary. A squad of humans, outnumbered 5-1, lured a Zerath squad into a narrow gorge. Using timed detonations and clever decoys, the humans caused confusion and forced the Zerath to retreat. The victory was small in scale but enormous in morale. The Zerath commanders began to realize that raw power alone could not guarantee success. Humanity's strength lay in adaptability, unity, and creativity. General Veyron, observing these events, felt a mixture of admiration and concern. "They survive because they refuse to quit," he said to his officers. "Each challenge makes them stronger. If we are not careful, they may grow beyond our control." The tide turns. Weeks into the conflict, humanity launched a coordinated counteroffensive. Scientists had reverse-engineered captured Zerath technology. Engineers had built devices that could disrupt energy shields and communication networks. Human pilots flew with precision, coordinating attacks like never before. The turning point came in a major orbital battle. A fleet of human ships, smaller and weaker, used deception and strategy to confuse the Zerath armada. They feigned retreats, split their formations, and struck at critical points. For the first time, a significant number of Zerath vessels were destroyed or damaged. The victory sent shockwaves through both sides. On Earth, people celebrated cautiously. Across the galaxy, other species took notice. Rumors spread of humans standing against the Empire. Even within the Zerath Dominion, doubt grew. Officers who once dismissed humans began to question their beliefs. If a species so small could defeat skilled warriors, what else might they achieve? Leadership under pressure. Human leaders knew the war was far from over. Secretary General Ortega addressed the world. "We have shown that even in the face of impossible odds, we can survive and fight. But we must remain united. Our strength lies not in weapons alone, but in our courage, ingenuity, and cooperation. Together we can face anything, Captain Miller added. Every failure is a lesson. Every attack teaches us something new. We do not have the strongest weapons, but we have the strongest hearts. That is what the Zerath have yet to understand. Their speeches inspired millions. Civilians joined in support, supplying food, building shelters, and assisting with communications. The entire planet, from cities to remote villages, became part of the effort. The Zerath realize, in the council chambers, tension reached its peak. Generals argued bitterly. Some demanded total annihilation, insisting humans could never be allowed to inspire other species. Others, including General Veyran, warned caution. They are more dangerous than we imagined, Veyran said calmly. Not because they are stronger, but because they adapt, learn, and refuse to surrender. Our might alone will not guarantee victory. If we continue to underestimate them, we risk losing not just this planet, but our reputation across the galaxy. The Emperor listened in silence. He had ruled for centuries, and no species had ever challenged him. Yet these humans, small and seemingly fragile, had forced him to reconsider a new strategy. The Zerath began changing tactics. Instead of relying solely on brute force, they tried to understand humanity's methods. They observed patterns, predicted moves, and attempted to counter human ingenuity. Human scientists, in turn, observed the Zerath closely. They studied their movements, habits, and even emotions. Each side learned from the other. The war, initially one-sided, had become a true test, not of strength alone, but of intelligence, adaptability, and courage. The spirit of humanity. Despite the destruction, the human spirit remained unbroken. Communities rebuilt, soldiers trained harder, and scientists created new innovations. Every setback was met with renewed effort. Captain Miller led a group of volunteers to repair a damaged city after an orbital strike. Children, women, and elderly joined in, carrying supplies, clearing debris, and lifting morale. One of the volunteers, a young girl, said, "We may be small, but we do not give up. That is what makes us strong." Her words resonated across the battlefield. Humans fought not just to survive, but to prove that they could stand against the impossible. The outcome by the end of the first phase of war, humans had not defeated the Zerath entirely, but they had achieved something more important. They had survived, adapted, and inspired hope across the galaxy. Even some Zerath soldiers began to respect humans. The empire that had always been certain of its dominance now faced doubt. The strongest species in the galaxy had met humans, and for the first time they were challenged. General Veyran stared at Earth from orbit, his thoughts heavy. "They are stronger than I ever imagined," he admitted. "Not in body, but in will. And perhaps that is the kind of strength that cannot be conquered." The battles had only begun, and the war would continue. But one truth was already clear. Humanity would not bow. The war between humans and the Zerath Dominion had dragged on for months. Cities had been damaged, fleets destroyed, and countless lives lost. Yet the humans had not surrendered. Their ingenuity, courage, and refusal to give up had transformed fear into determination. Across the galaxy, other species watched in silence, some secretly hoping that the humans could succeed where others had failed. On Earth, leaders and scientists worked tirelessly. Every defeat was analyzed, every mistake corrected. Captain David Miller led field operations while engineers and researchers reverse-engineered, captured Zerath technology. Humans had learned quickly. They were no longer fighting just to survive. They were learning to fight strategically. Sparks of rebellion, word of humanity's resilience, spread to planets under Zerath control. Entire worlds that had long suffered under the Dominion began whispering of hope. Small groups secretly reached out to human operatives, offering information, supplies, and plans. One such world, Kryn, had been under Zerath rule for centuries. Its people had accepted oppression as normal. But after witnessing humans outsmart Zerath forces in simulation feeds sent across the galaxy, secret councils formed. They began preparing to join the rebellion. Captain Miller received transmissions from Kryn. The messages were cautious but clear. "We wish to aid you. We will fight for freedom." Veyran watched these developments silently. The humans are creating a ripple across the galaxy. A small species is turning oppressed worlds into allies. Coordinated counteroffensive with the help of allied planets, humanity launched a counteroffensive. The strategy was different this time. It was not just about surviving attacks, but striking at the Zerath's most critical points. Human scientists had developed devices that could temporarily disable Zerath shields and disrupt communications. Coordinated teams of pilots, soldiers, and engineers struck simultaneously on multiple fronts. The first target was a major supply station in the outer galaxy. Humans infiltrated the station using stealth ships and clever diversion tactics. By creating multiple false attacks, they drew away the Zerath forces while a small team sabotaged the station's power core. The explosion was massive but carefully controlled to avoid civilian casualties. For the first time, a Zerath stronghold had been captured not by brute force but by strategy, cunning, and patience. The Battle of Unity, the counteroffensive, continued. Human fleets moved across the galaxy with precision. Alien species that had long suffered under the Dominion joined their ranks. Together they formed a coalition stronger than any Zerath had anticipated. The battle that became known as the Siege of Thalor Prime was a turning point. A key planet under Zerath control had been a symbol of their dominance for centuries. Its destruction or capture would send a powerful message. Humans and their allies attacked from multiple directions. Small teams infiltrated critical command centers while the main fleet created diversions. Zerath forces, confident in their strength, were surprised by the coordination and adaptability of the attackers. In the thick of the battle, Captain Miller led a team that disabled the planet's defense grid. Explosions rocked the surface, yet humans avoided unnecessary destruction. The coalition's disciplined approach ensured that civilians were protected, showing that strength was not only measured by might, but by wisdom and responsibility. By the end of the battle, Thalor Prime was under human-led coalition control. The victory inspired planets across the galaxy to rise against the Dominion. Baron's realization. General Varen watched the reports in stunned silence. Never before had he seen the Dominion's authority challenged so thoroughly. He had believed the Zerath unbeatable, and yet, a small, fragile species had not only survived but inspired rebellion across multiple systems. They fight with courage and cleverness, Varen admitted quietly, not because they are the strongest in body, but because they are relentless in spirit. I underestimated them, and that was my mistake. Even among other Zerath officers, doubt spread. Some argued to increase attacks, while others suggested negotiating with humans. The idea that a fragile species could inspire the oppressed to rise against a mighty empire was almost unthinkable. Varen knew that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or numbers, it was their ability to unite and inspire others. The human spirit on Earth? People celebrated cautiously. They knew the war was far from over, yet hope was stronger than fear. Scientists worked tirelessly, engineers constructed new ships and devices, and communities provided support for soldiers and families alike. Captain Miller addressed his teams. Every victory is built on teamwork. Every success is a lesson learned. We are not invincible, but we are persistent. That is what makes us stronger than they expect. Soldiers nodded. They had faced the impossible and survived. They understood that true strength was more than muscle. It was endurance, creativity, and the courage to keep going when all seemed lost. The turning point in the galaxy. The news of human victories reached countless planets under Zerath control. Many had long accepted the Dominion's rule as permanent. But now humans had proven that the invincible empire could be challenged. Rebellions erupted on multiple worlds. Small groups sabotaged Zerath supply lines, ambushed patrols, and secretly assisted coalition forces. Humanity had shown that one species, united and clever, could inspire others to reclaim their freedom. On Kryn, humans and locals celebrated together after a successful sabotage mission. Children watched in awe as their elders worked with the humans, learning tactics and strategies for the first time. Generations that had never known freedom now glimpsed the possibility of a brighter future. The Zerath's dilemma. The Zerath Dominion had never faced an enemy like humanity. They had conquered countless species, yet none had demonstrated such persistence, cleverness, and the ability to inspire others. The Emperor convened his council. These humans, they grow stronger not by weapons but by spirit. How do we defeat a species that cannot be broken by force? Some generals suggested total annihilation, but Varen spoke with quiet authority. We may crush them physically, yes, but their influence is already spreading. Every act of oppression we commit will only make them stronger in the eyes of the galaxy. To fight them without understanding them is to fight against an idea we cannot destroy. For the first time, the Emperor hesitated. Doubt had entered the mind of the strongest ruler in the galaxy. The alliance strengthens humanity's coalition continued to grow. Planets that had been ruled by fear now joined the fight openly. They provided ships, soldiers, and intelligence. Human leaders coordinated with alien commanders, sharing tactics and plans in a way the Zerath had never experienced. The coalition had become more than a military force. It was a symbol of hope. Wherever human ships appeared, oppressed populations felt inspired to resist. The Zerath Dominion, once the unchallenged ruler of the galaxy, now faced a war on multiple fronts. Captain Miller led a council of coalition leaders, planning the next phase of operations. "We have shown them what we are capable of," he said. "Now we must continue to show the galaxy that courage, unity, and intelligence are forces they cannot ignore." Humanity's message beyond battlefields, humans sent messages across the galaxy. They did not speak of revenge, domination, or conquest. They spoke of freedom, unity, and the power of hope. One message, broadcast to planets under Zerath control, stated simply, "We are humans. We have survived because we do not give up. We fight not for ourselves alone, but for every world that dreams of freedom. Join us and together we can build a future where all species are respected and valued." The words resonated. Systems that had long accepted oppression now dreamed of freedom. A fragile species from Earth had sparked a galaxy-wide movement, a new reality. By the end of this phase of the war, the balance had shifted. Humanity had not destroyed the Zerath Dominion, but they had shown that the strongest species in the galaxy could be challenged. The empire that had once crushed worlds with ease now faced resistance unlike anything in its history. And the humans, though still small and fragile compared to the Zerath, had proven something far greater than raw power. They had proven that courage, unity, and ingenuity could stand against any force. General Varen looked toward Earth from his flagship orbiting above. "They are stronger than we imagined," he admitted once more. "Not because of muscle or weapons, but because they refuse to break. And perhaps that is a strength even we cannot conquer." The war was far from over. Battles would rage, sacrifices would be made, and the galaxy would tremble. But one truth was undeniable. Humanity had changed the course of history, and the turning point had arrived.